Why did my own son bring a doctor, a lawyer, and a locked suitcase to the radio station before sunrise, then tell me I was no longer allowed to touch the microphone my husband had left me? I had buried Arthur only 3 months earlier. That morning, Wesley stood in the doorway with tears in his eyes and papers in his hand, saying, "Mom, this is for your own good." But his wife would not look at me. My daughter's husband kept checking his phone. And when I asked why the station keys were already missing from my purse, the room went so quiet I could hear Arthur's old broadcast still humming in the walls. That was when I realized they were not there to help me. They were there to erase me. I did not say that out loud. I only looked from one face to another, searching for the son I had raised, the woman who had married him, and the man my daughter trusted. What I found instead was a row of careful expressions, each one polished until it looked almost kind. Wesley stepped closer to Arthur's desk with both hands open. "Mom, sit down for a minute." "I am already sitting," I said. My voice came out steady, and that seemed to disappoint them. They had expected shouting. Maybe they had hoped for tears. I had spent 31 years answering emergency calls, and that work had taught me this. Fear does not need to be loud. Holly set the locked suitcase on Arthur's old chair. That was the first thing that made my hands curl under the desk. Not the papers, not the doctor, not even Wesley's red eyes. It was that suitcase resting where my husband used to sit every Sunday morning with coffee and glasses low on his nose. "Take that off his chair," I said. Holly looked at Wesley before she looked at me. Wesley sighed. "Mom, please do not start. I asked her to take that off your father's chair." Yvonne stood near the window. He had never cared about the station unless Kendra wanted road reports during bad weather. Yet there he was, dressed for a business meeting. Not like a son-in-law visiting a grieving widow that morning. The lawyer opened her folder. The doctor stood beside her, quiet and watchful. "June," the doctor said, "your family is worried about your safety." My family could have called after breakfast. Holly finally lifted the suitcase from Arthur's chair and set it by the file cabinets. The lawyer slid a paper forward. "Mrs. Pike, nobody is here to force anything today. Then why did my son lock the door?" No one answered quickly enough. I had heard the deadbolt. In a radio station, every small sound has a place. I knew the hum of the refrigerator, the rattle of the heating vent, and the faint buzz under the broadcast board. I knew the sound of a locked door, too. Holly pulled a folded paper from her purse. "June, there have been incidents." "Incidents," I said. Wesley looked away, and that told me he had read it before. Evan stopped looking at his phone. The lawyer watched my face, waiting for me to make her job easier. Holly began reading. "On Monday, June left the kettle burning on the stove. I do not own a kettle. It was at Kendra's house. Kendra made tea in the microwave." Evan spoke without looking up. "There was steam everywhere when I came in. You came in after we had already cleaned the kitchen." "That is not how I remember it." "No," I said. "I expect it is not," Holly continued. "On Wednesday, June forgot lunch with Wesley." "You canceled that lunch," I said. "You sent a message saying a client meeting ran long." Wesley gave the lawyer a tired glance. "My old phone broke. I lost some messages." "Of course you did." The doctor leaned forward. "Memory trouble can feel threatening." "I know the difference between a gap and a lie," I said. Holly lowered her paper. "There was also the church supper. You left without paying, and you kept asking where Arthur was." "I brought 2 pies and worked the serving line," I said. "And I asked why Arthur's name was still printed on the volunteer list." The lawyer wrote something down. I wanted to snatch the pen from her hand. Wesley came around the desk, and I stood before he could reach me. "Mom, this is exactly what worries us. You fight every detail because every detail is wrong, not every detail. Then give me one that is right." He looked at Holly. She swallowed. "The station door. What about the station door?" Wesley lowered his voice. "You left it unlocked last night." "No, Mom. No, I checked it twice." Evan slipped his phone into his pocket. "The back door was open when Holly drove by." "At what time?" "At dawn," Holly said. "Why were you driving by the station at dawn?" "Because I was worried about you." Worried enough to check the back door before calling me. Wesley stepped between us. "This is not a trial. It is beginning to feel like one." "The transmitter room was exposed," he said. Rain got under the back door. Raleigh had to shut things down before the old board shorted. Raleigh would have called me. He called me. That stopped me. Raleigh Boone had worked on that station since before my children were born. If something had happened in the transmitter room, Raleigh would have called me first. Unless he had been told not to, unless he did not know his name was being used. I reached for the station phone. Wesley put his hand over the receiver. Not right now, he said. The doctor watched that. For a moment, I thought he saw what was happening. Then Holly spoke again. June, Meadow Glass has a room ready. It is not permanent. It is only an evaluation. Meadow Glass. The name landed like a lid. I am not going to Meadow Glass. I wanted Kendra. If this were truly about family, my daughter would have been in that room, not represented by her husband's careful silence. Where is Kendra? I asked. Even looked straight at me. She knows. She knows you are here? She knows we are worried. That is not what I asked. She is upset, June. She could not handle another argument. Wesley softened his voice. Kendra loves you. We all do. Holly stepped forward before anyone else could speak. That is why this help matters. The station is too much. There it was, the station. Not my health. Not a kettle. Not a church supper. The station. I placed both palms on Arthur's desk. What do you want from Pike Family Radio? Wesley exhaled. No one is talking about that right now. I am. This is about you. No, this is about a building you have wanted to sell since your father refused the tower lease. The doctor looked up. The lawyer stopped writing. Holly's face stayed smooth, but Evan's eyes flicked toward the file cabinets and back. Wesley's grief hardened. That place is bleeding money. It has served this county for 40 years. It is an old shed with an antenna. It was your father's work. It was Dad's obsession. The words cracked through the room. Even Wesley seemed startled by what had come out of him. Then his face folded again. I am sorry. I did not mean that. Yes, I said. You did. Holly bent and opened the suitcase. Inside were folded clothes. My clothes, a gray sweater, 2 nightgowns, my good slippers. The blue robe Kendra gave me after Arthur's surgery. Holly had been in my house, in my bedroom, in my drawers. When did you pack that? We only brought what you might need, Holly said. Did you touch my husband's things? No, too quick. Wesley's face tightened. Nobody is stealing from you. I did not say stealing. You are acting like we are criminals. You came before sunrise with my clothes packed in a locked suitcase, a lawyer, and a doctor. What would you call it? A family intervention, Holly said. I looked toward the broadcast booth. Arthur's empty microphone hung over the console like a question. I walked into the booth, even shifted. Where are you going? To work. Wesley followed. Mom, stop. The booth smelled of warm dust, old foam, coffee metal, and Arthur's lemon drops. My fingers found the console without needing to look. Muscle memory is a kind of truth no paper can erase. I reached for the main switch. Wesley caught my wrist, not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to tell me the line had moved. I looked down at his hand. When he was a little boy, that hand had fit inside mine during thunderstorms. Now those same fingers held me as if I were the danger. Let go, I said. Not until you calm down. I am calm. You are trying to go on air. I am trying to prove I know how to run my own station. The doctor appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Pike, this is becoming unsafe. I laughed once, and I hated the sound because I knew they would remember it. Unsafe and for whom? Wesley released my wrist. Let me call Raleigh, I said. No. The answer came too fast. I turned slowly. Why not? Holly spoke from behind him. Because Raleigh already agrees you need rest. That lie hurt because they had chosen a man I trusted and put his name in their mouths. Call him. Later, Wesley said. Now, the lawyer stepped closer. Refusing evaluation may make it harder for your family to protect you. Protect me from what? No one answered. A strange calm moved through me. It was the calm that used to arrive during terrible calls, when the person on the other end had stopped making sense and the only way to save them was to listen beneath the panic. What was true was simple. They had come prepared. They had packed my clothes. They had kept Kendra away. They had blocked the phone. They had already spoken to a facility. They needed me to sign or break. I would do neither. I walked past them and opened the front door. Cold morning air came in, smelling of wet gravel and pine. Across the road, the station's old sign leaned against its posts, faded but not gone. For one breath, I thought I had won the room back, then I saw the second car. It was parked near the side entrance, half hidden by the old maple tree. A woman in a pale jacket sat behind the wheel. Another person sat beside her, holding a clipboard, meadow glass. I knew before Wesley said it. He came up behind me, careful not to touch me. Mom, please do not make them think we have to do this the hard way. The hard way. They had a soft way, prepared papers, tears, folded sweaters, a locked suitcase. People who could write words like confused, resistant, agitated, and unsafe. The hard way would be anything I said in my own defense. Give me my purse, I said. Holly was already holding it. I had left it behind the desk. She held it against her stomach like something she had rescued. I will carry it for you, she said. No, you will hand it to me. Wesley took the purse from her and held it out. Promise me you will cooperate. Give me my purse. He let go. The purse felt lighter than it should have. I opened it. My wallet was there, my lipstick, tissues, a church bulletin folded twice, but the key ring was gone, the station keys, my house keys, Arthur's little brass tag with the worn initials. I looked up, Wesley's eyes slid away. Where are my keys? We will keep them safe for now. Who is we? This is temporary. Who has my keys? Holly lifted her chin. June, you cannot keep going in and out of places unsupervised. It was an astonishing thing to hear from a woman standing in the building my husband and I had paid for, wearing earrings I had given her on her last birthday. The woman from the car walked toward us. Her face was kind, which made her more frightening. Good morning, Mrs. Pike. My name is Laurel. We are going to take a ride and get you settled for a brief assessment. I did not agree to that. I understand this feels sudden. It does not feel sudden. It feels planned. Her eyes moved to Wesley. He lowered his head like a son carrying unbearable duty. She has been having a very hard time, he said. Laurel nodded. Grief can make changes feel frightening. I stepped close enough that she had to look at me. Laurel, I am not confused. I am angry. For a moment, her face changed, not enough to help me, enough to show she might remember it later. Wesley put a hand to his eyes. Mom, you left the station open in a storm. There was no storm when I locked up. The doctor said, there was heavy rain after midnight. I was home after midnight. Holly gave a faint, wounded sigh. You called me from here. You said you heard Arthur talking in the walls. The lie settled into place like a trapdoor under my feet. Not a missed lunch, not a kettle, not a church supper. This was the sentence they wanted in a file. Widow hears dead husband in walls. Widow goes to station at night. Widow leaves door opened in storm. I did not call her, I said. Holly's eyes shone. June, I wish that were true. Evan said quietly, this is getting cruel, cruel. That was the word they chose for my defense, not their accusation. Laurel opened the car door. Just come with us, she said. Your family can visit after you rest. My daughter can visit. Evan answered before anyone else. Kendra needs some time. I looked at him, and I knew this did not stop with Wesley. Evan's voice was too ready, too smooth. He had not come to support my daughter. He had come to keep her away from me. I turned back to the station. Through the open door, I could see the dark on-air light above the booth, Arthur's chair, the suitcase on the floor, and Holly watching me as if I were already a problem being removed. There were no right words for watching your son stand between you and your own life, so I said only what I could carry. Wesley, you are making a mistake you cannot take back. His face crumpled. For one breath, I saw my little boy again. Then Holly moved behind him, and the boy disappeared. I am trying to save you, he said. No, I said. You are trying to make sure no one hears me. I stepped into the car. I did not fight them. That was what they would say later. June came willingly. June understood. June was tired. June needed help. But as Laurel closed the door, I turned back one last time. Wesley stood in the station doorway with my key ring in his hand. Arthur's brass tag caught the first thin piece of morning light. Wesley closed his fingers around it, slipped the keys into his coat pocket, and turned back toward the station as if he had finally come home. The car pulled away before he looked back. I kept my eyes on the side mirror, watching Pike Family Radio shrink behind us. The old sign vanished first, then the roofline slipped behind the maples. Last came the antenna, thin and gray against the morning sky, standing there like a needle trying to sew the world back together. Laurel sat beside me in the back seat with her clipboard on her knees. The driver did not speak. Neither of them asked if I was comfortable. People often remember comfort only after they have already taken away choice. You can still turn around, I said. Laurel kept her voice soft. We are only going to get you settled. I am not furniture. No one thinks you are. Then stop using words like settled. She looked down at the page in her lap. I could see pieces of it. My name, grief response, wandering concern, possible auditory confusion. The words were neat, clean, and dangerous. I heard my husband on a recording, I said. That is not the same as hearing voices. Laurel wrote something down. I laughed once, though there was nothing funny in it. You see, even that becomes part of your file. It helps us understand how you are feeling. No, it helps you decide what I am allowed to say later. She did not answer. A woman at the front desk smiled as if I had arrived for tea. Welcome, June. She knew my name before I gave it. My family had already been here in sentences. I was only bringing the body. They took my purse at intake. Standard policy, Laurel said. I want my phone. You will be able to make calls after admission. I did not agree to admission. Temporary evaluation, she corrected. That is a prettier word for the same locked door. They brought me to a room with a narrow bed, a pale quilt, and a painting of a rowboat that had never seen water. My suitcase sat open on the bed. Holly had folded my clothes with the care of a woman arranging evidence. The blue robe lay on top, smelling not like home, but like Holly's laundry soap. A young aide named Maribel showed me the bathroom, the call button, and the closet. She spoke kindly but loudly, as if grief had made me hard of hearing. Do you need help changing, Mrs. Pike? No. All right, I will give you privacy. She left the door open a few inches. I waited until her shoes moved away, then crossed the room and pulled the door shut. It did not lock from the inside. That small fact hit harder than I expected. At the station, every door had a sound, every key had weight. Here, doors belonged to other people. I sat on the edge of the bed and made myself breathe slowly. Panic would help them, rage would help them, even tears, if the wrong person entered at the wrong time, could be turned into a note. So I named what I knew. My purse was gone, my keys were gone, my phone was gone. Kendra had not called. Wesley had the station. Holly had packed my clothes. Evan had answered too quickly. The story about the open station door was false. The story about my late night call was false. Somewhere inside those lies was the reason they needed me out before breakfast. After lunch, they let me use a phone at the nurse's desk. Laurel stood close enough to hear. I need to call my daughter, I said. We can dial for you. I know my daughter's number. That is good, she said, in the same voice people use when a child ties one shoe. My fingers found Kendra's number without hesitation. Each tone sounded like a small step across thin ice. It rang twice, then Evan answered. June? My stomach dropped. Put Kendra on. She is resting. At this hour, she had a terrible morning. She had a terrible morning. Please do not make this harder. Make what harder? Everyone is trying to help you. I want to speak to my daughter. She knows where you are. Then she can tell me herself. A door closed on his end. His voice lowered. June, she is scared. She thinks if she talks to you right now, you will beg her to undo something that needs to happen. What did you tell her happened? The truth. No, Evan, you would not recognize the truth if it sat beside you at Sunday dinner. Laurel shifted beside me. I turned slightly, giving her my back, even side. This is exactly what we were afraid of, that you would attack everyone trying to help. Tell Kendra I called. I will tell her when it will not upset her. The line went dead. Did you reach her? Laurel asked. No, I said. Her husband reached me first. Laurel wrote that down too. By late afternoon, 3 different people had asked me the same questions. What day was it? Who was the president? Where was I? Did I ever feel Arthur nearby? I answered plainly until the last question. My husband is dead, I said. His voice is recorded in hundreds of hours of radio programs. If I hear him, it is because he built a life that left echoes. The woman with the tablet paused. That is a very poetic answer. It is an honest one. She smiled, as if honesty were a symptom with better manners. That evening, Maribel brought dinner on a tray and lingered near the door. My grandmother used to listen to Pike Family Radio, she said, every Sunday after church. That was Arthur's program. She glanced down the hallway. They said you ran that station too. I still do. I asked whether old friends could visit. She looked sorry before she answered, only if the family contact approves them. Family contact. A clean phrase, a dirty lock. My son had become the gate between me and the outside world. When she left, I did not eat much. Hunger felt too much like agreement. That night, I lay awake under the pale quilt and listened to the building settle. Somewhere down the hall, a woman called for a sister who never came. Shoes squeaked, a cart rolled, a television murmured behind a closed door. I touched my wedding ring in the dark. Arthur, I whispered, then stopped, not because I thought he would answer, because if anyone heard me, they would write it down. While I lay there, Wesley was inside Pike family radio with men who did not care about road reports, church notices, storm warnings, or Arthur's chair. I learned the details later, but I can still picture him opening file cabinets with my keys and pretending the dust on the archive boxes embarrassed him. The buyer wanted the transmitter land, the access road, and the chance to lease space to companies with deeper pockets than anyone in our county. Wesley told him the family situation was under control. He said his mother's condition had become unpredictable, the paperwork would soon be easier, and no one wanted to hold up a practical sale for sentimental reasons. Then he walked the buyer past Arthur's booth without turning on the light. The next morning, Kendra came to Meadow Glass alone. I saw her through the glass before she saw me. My daughter stood in the lobby with her coat still buttoned, looking smaller than she had the right to look. When she stepped into the visiting room, I did not reach for her right away. I had already learned the room had eyes. She came to me first. Mom, I held her so tightly she made a small sound. I called you, I said into her hair. I know. Evan told me you were upset. I was. He said you accused him. I did. Kendra, listen to me. I did not call Holly from the station at night. I did not leave the back door open. I did not forget lunch with Wesley. I did not wander, her face twisted. I want to believe you, then start there. I am trying. That means someone has taught you not to. She sat across from me, hands clasped. Her wedding ring looked loose on her finger. Holly has notes, she said. Wesley showed me. Dates, things you said, times you got confused. Holly has always liked making lists. These are not shopping lists. No, they are worse. Kendra looked toward the hallway. Evan says if we fight the evaluation, it could make things look bad. Bad for me or bad for the sale. Her eyes dropped. So she knew about that much. Wesley says the station is failing, she whispered. He says there are debts. What debts? I do not know. He said Dad kept things from everyone. That is a lie. Mom, Dad did not tell us everything. No marriage tells children everything. That does not mean your father hid debt. She rubbed both hands over her face. I found something. My heart changed pace. At Holly's house, she left a folder on the kitchen island, care notes. I went over because Wesley wanted me to sign a family contact form and Holly was upstairs. What did you find? A note saying you got lost driving to my house on the day after the church supper. I was at your house that day, I know. The words came out barely above breath. You were there before breakfast. You helped me clean the pantry. We had soup for lunch. You fell asleep on my couch with my gray blanket. For the first time since Wesley had taken my keys, the room seemed to open a crack. Did you tell Evan? She nodded slowly. He said Holly must have written the wrong date. And did you believe him? I wanted to. Wanting to believe is how many women stay lost. I did not say that to her. She was already frightened enough. Kendra looked at my hands. Mom, why would they do this? There are questions a mother should never have to answer about her own children. I do not know all of it yet, I said, but they need the station, and they need me quiet. The visiting room door opened before she could answer. Laurel stepped in with a polite smile. We need to keep this visit calm. Kendra stiffened. It is calm. I am glad. June has had a difficult adjustment. I turned to Laurel. Do not speak about me as if I am not sitting here. Laurel's smile held. Of course, Kendra stood. I want to be added as her contact. That would need to go through the primary family contact. My brother? Yes, I am her daughter. And I understand that. The words were wrapped in cotton, but the wall underneath was brick. Kendra looked back at me. She wanted me to tell her what to do. I wanted Arthur. I wanted Raleigh. I wanted the station phone and my keys and a world where love did not require legal permission. Instead, I said, "Go to the station." Her face went still. "Ask Raleigh about the back door." Wesley says Raleigh already told him. "Ask Raleigh yourself." Laurel took one step closer. "June, it may not be helpful to send Kendra into family conflict." I did not look away from my daughter. "Go to the station," I said again. Kendra nodded. Just once after she left, the rest of the day passed under soft voices. They offered warm tea and a group called Life Transitions. I refused the group and drank the tea. Near dusk, Maribel came in with fresh towels. "You have a call scheduled with Dr. Brandt tomorrow," she said. "I already spoke to him. This is a family review. Will my family be here?" "I think Mr. Pike will. Of course, Wesley would be there. A son beside a doctor sounds more reasonable than a mother alone." "Maribel," I asked, "does anyone here listen to local radio?" She smiled. "Mostly the kitchen. One of the nurses brings a little radio in. The signal is not great, but she likes old music. Pike family radio. Sometimes it comes and goes. May I hear it?" "I do not know if that is allowed." "To hear music?" She looked embarrassed. "I can ask." "Do not ask, Wesley." Her eyes rose to mine. For a second, I saw not an aide, not a policy, but a young woman deciding whether kindness was worth trouble. "I will see," she said. I woke before dawn with my heart racing. The hallway was quiet except for a cart rolling somewhere far away. My door was open again. I got up, wrapped Holly's soap-scented robe around me, and stepped out. The nurse's station glowed at the end of the hall. A little radio sat beside a stack of paper cups. Stack breathed through the speaker. Then a song faded out and a voice came through. Arthur's voice. I stopped so suddenly my hand struck the wall. It was not clear. The signal fluttered, dipping behind static, then rising again. But I knew that voice the way I knew my own pulse. "Well, now," Arthur said through the little speaker, "warm and worn and alive in the only way a recording can be alive. Sunday mornings are for pancakes, second chances, and folks who still believe a voice can find its way home." My knees nearly gave. A nurse looked up. "Mrs. Pike." I could not answer. The program was old. One of Arthur's Sunday shows, probably pulled from the archive rotation. He had recorded introductions in batches when his health started to fail. Sometimes he tucked jokes into them, sometimes small messages for me, nothing anyone else would notice. The nurse reached for the dial. "Please," I said, "do not turn it off." Something in my voice stopped her. Static rolled in again. Arthur faded, then returned. "And if anyone ever says June has no voice," he said almost lightly, as if he were only teasing his listeners, "look where the signal sleeps." The hallway seemed to tilt. The nurse smiled uncertainly. That was sweet. But it was not sweet. Arthur never wasted a phrase. Signal was not just a word to him. Sleep was not just a word either. Signal slept in archives, in reels, in cabinets, in dead equipment, waiting to be powered again. I stood in that pale hallway with no keys, no phone, no way out, and for the first time since the car door closed, I felt something stronger than fear. Arthur had left me something, and whatever it was still inside the station. And whatever it was still inside the station. I carried that thought back to my room like a match cupped in both hands. Meadow Glass still had my purse, my keys, my phone, and my door, but it did not have the full story. Arthur's voice had reached me through static, and that meant he had left a trail only someone who loved the station would understand. By breakfast, I knew asking permission would only teach them where to build the next wall. I waited until Maribel came in with towels, then kept my voice low. "I need you to do something kind and probably inconvenient." She stopped beside the dresser. "That depends on what it is." "I need my daughter to hear a message before Wesley does." "Family messages have to go through the desk. Then everyone who wants me quiet will hear it first." Maribel looked toward the hallway. She knew rules could be used like locks. "What do you want me to say?" "Tell Kendra this. Ask Raleigh where the signal sleeps. Tell her," Arthur said it on the radio, "tell her I am still myself." Maribel's fingers tightened around the towels. "I could get in trouble. I know." She did not promise. She only nodded once. For the next hour, I answered every question calmly. A nurse asked whether I felt anxious. I said anyone taken from her own home by surprise would feel anxious. A young man with a badge asked if I knew where I was. I gave him the name of the facility, the county, the day, and the window that did not close properly. Near mid-morning, Laurel came in with Wesley. My son kissed my cheek before I could move away. Mom, how are you feeling? Like someone who woke up in a place she did not choose. He sighed. We are trying to make this easier, then give me my phone. We talked about that. No, you talked. I was transported. Laurel stepped in with her soft voice. The family review is this afternoon. It will help if everyone stays calm. Calm is not the same as obedient, I said. Wesley set a small laundry bag in the closet. I brought a few more things from the house. What else did you take? Do not make every kindness ugly. If you have one clean reason for why my keys were in your pocket, say it now. He looked at Laurel, then back at me. You were not safe driving. I was not driving. I was at my own desk. You could have. So could you. Yet no one has locked you away for what you might do. His cheeks flushed. I have a meeting, he said. I came because I love you. You came because you are afraid I heard something that landed like a man hearing a floorboard creak beneath him in the dark. What did you hear? He asked. I smiled, though my mouth felt dry. Arthur. For once, Wesley had no answer ready. He left soon after. Laurel stayed behind to remind me that grief can make ordinary words feel meaningful. I let her speak. Miles away, Maribel's message found my daughter. Kendra later told me she was standing in her kitchen with cold coffee and a folder of family forms when her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost did not answer. Evan had told her to stop letting every call pull her into panic. But some instinct made her swipe the screen. The voice on the other end spoke quickly. Your mother said to ask Raleigh where the signal sleeps. She said Arthur said it on the radio. She said she is still herself. Then the call ended. Kendra stood so long that the kitchen light clicked off above her. Even came in from the hall, already wearing his careful face. Who was that? No one. You look upset. I am tired of people telling me how I look. He stopped near the island. Kendra, do not use that voice. What voice? The voice that starts soft and ends with me apologizing. He spread his hands. I am on your side. Then why did you answer when my mother called? You were resting. I was in the shower. His face tightened just enough. You were not in a good place. You mean I was asking questions? I mean, your brother is carrying a lot, and you are making it harder. She pulled a paper from Holly's folder. This note says, Mom got lost driving to my house the morning after the church supper. Evan sighed. We went over this. No, you explained it away. That is not the same. Holly wrote the wrong date. Mom was with me all day. You are upset. Your memory is not perfect either. Kendra folded the paper and placed it in her purse. I am going to the station. Evan's eyes sharpened. Why? To talk to Raleigh. Raleigh already talked to Wesley. Then he can talk to me. He stepped between her and the back door. Not today. There are legal things happening. You walking in there emotional will only make everything messy. Move. He blinked. In their marriage, Kendra had often bent before a fight became too loud, but something had shifted. Maybe it was the wrong date on Holly's note. Maybe it was my call being answered by her husband. Maybe it was Arthur reaching through static. Kendra, be reasonable. I am being my mother's daughter. She took her keys and left before he could find a softer cage. The station looked different when Kendra arrived. Fresh tire tracks marked the gravel near the side entrance. The back door, the one Holly claimed I had left open in the rain, had plastic tape along the frame as if someone wanted damage to look recent, but the ground beneath the overhang was dry. Inside, glossy folders sat on the front counter. They looked like the kind real estate people bring when they want an old place to feel empty before it is sold. Kendra called Raleigh's name. Something clanged in the back room, followed by a muttered word Arthur would have pretended not to hear on Sunday. Raleigh Boone came out carrying a coil of cable over one shoulder. His white hair stuck out beneath a faded station picnic cap. When he saw Kendra, worry crossed his narrow face. Your brother know you are here. That is not the first question I wanted, usually is these days. Did you call Wesley about the back door? Raleigh lowered the cable. What back door? The night before Mom was taken to Meadow Glass. Wesley said the station door was open, rain got in, and you had to shut things down. Raleigh's mouth hardened. I shut down nothing. I was home with a heating pad on my shoulder and a ball game on mute. So you did not call Wesley? I have not called Wesley about station equipment in months. He does not know a transmitter from a toaster. Kendra held the counter. Then he lied. Raleigh studied her carefully. Question is, how many lies are you ready to hear? Before she could answer, the front door opened. Holly walked in with two paper cups and a smile that failed as soon as she saw Kendra. Well, Holly said, I did not know you were coming by. I did not know I needed permission. Of course not. Wesley is handling station business today. Wesley is not here. He stepped out to meet someone. Raleigh grunted. Holly glanced at the folders, then at Kendra. You should not have to stand in the middle of this. Evan is worried about you. Then everyone can stop using my husband to keep me away from my mother. Holly's face softened in that practiced way of hers. We are protecting June from stress. My mother is in a locked facility. It is not locked. Can she walk out? Holly did not answer. Kendra looked toward Arthur's office. What is the hurry with the sale? It is not a sale yet. It is responsible planning. Responsible for whom? Holly's fingers tightened around the cup. Your father left things complicated. My father kept records on napkins and still knew where every nickel went. People change when they are sick. My mother is not the only person you are trying to make sound helpless. The color left Holly's face. I am calling Evan. Go ahead, Kendra said. Holly went into Arthur's office and shut the door. Raleigh waited until the latch clicked. You want to know where the signal sleeps? Kendra turned. You know what that means? I know what Arthur meant by signal. Sleep could mean the archives, the dead board, old reels, or the transmitter cabinet. Mom said to ask you. Then we start where Wesley would not think to look. They went first to the archive room. Arthur's handwriting lived on every box. Sunday music, storm coverage, school closings, county fair interviews. Kendra ran her fingers over the labels and felt for the first time how much of her father remained in a building Wesley called an old shed. Raleigh pulled down boxes and opened reel cases with slow hands. Would Dad have hidden something from Mom? Kendra asked. Raleigh paused, not from her, for her. Through the wall, Holly's voice rose. At first, the words were only a murmur. Then one sentence cut cleanly through the old plaster. No, she is here now. I told you she should have been kept home. Kendra froze. Raleigh lifted one finger to his lips. Holly's voice lowered, then sharpened again. I do not care what Wesley promised. If Kendra starts pulling threads, Evan, this whole thing gets ugly. Kendra's hand went cold on the reel case. Another pause. Then Holly said, You said she would sign before the divorce papers were filed. The room tilted. Divorce papers. Kendra stepped back from the wall, but Holly kept talking. No, you do not get to act scared now. You wanted Kendra's share protected under your name before you walked away from her. I am not letting Wesley take all the blame while you keep your hands clean. Raleigh moved closer to Kendra, but she shook her head. If she opened her mouth, Holly would hear the sound breaking out of her. The office door opened. Holly stepped out with her phone in her hand. She stopped when she saw them standing too still. What? She asked. Kendra looked at her and saw all at once the rooms inside rooms. Wife to Wesley, comforter to Kendra, concerned daughter-in-law to me, and behind every door a different voice. Who are you talking to? Kendra asked. Holly's face closed. Evan, he is worried about you. I heard. Those two words struck harder than a shout. Holly went still. How much? Enough. Raleigh stepped forward. I think you should leave. Holly turned on him. You are an employee, not of yours. This is family business. No, Kendra said. Whatever this is, it stopped being family business when my husband's name came out of your mouth like that. Holly's eyes flashed. Do not be naive. Evan has been unhappy for years. The cruelty was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was casual. Kendra's face drained of feeling. Get out. Kendra, get out before I call Wesley and ask whether he knows what his wife has risked her marriage for. That did it. Holly gathered her purse quickly. At the front door, she turned back. You have no idea what your father left behind. Raleigh's face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. Holly seemed to realize she had said too much. She pushed through the door and left, her tires spitting gravel as she drove away. For several seconds, the station was silent except for the faint buzz of old lights. Kendra gripped Arthur's chair. My husband, she said, then stopped. Raleigh did not fill the silence with comfort. That was one of the kindest things he could have done. After a while, he said, we should find what your father left before they come back. Kendra wiped her face. Where is the transmitter cabinet? Behind a door Wesley never had patience for. They went down the back hall, past old cables, a silent reel player, and boxes marked in Arthur's square handwriting. At the end stood a metal door with scratches around the lock. Raleigh pulled a key ring from his pocket. I thought Wesley had the station keys, Kendra said. He has June's keys. I have mine. The lock resisted. Raleigh worked the key gently, then harder. Finally, it turned. The small room smelled of dust, warm metal, and rain trapped in concrete. A tall transmitter unit stood against the far wall. Beside it was a locked steel cabinet with a brass plate Arthur used to polish. Kendra read the faded words. Signal archive. Raleigh rested his hand on top of the cabinet. Arthur called this the sleeping box when equipment was powered down. Said a quiet signal was not dead, just waiting. Kendra whispered, where the signal sleeps. Raleigh tried one key, then another. The next stuck halfway. The fourth opened it with a dull click. Inside were manuals, spare parts, a cloth bag of tools, and several flat metal cases. They searched behind each one. Kendra's hands trembled so badly, she dropped a packet of old service receipts. Then she saw the envelope taped to the back wall behind a coil of black cable. It had only one word written across it. June Raleigh cut the tape carefully with a pocket knife. Inside were documents sealed in a plastic sleeve. Kendra read the first page, then read it again. The words did not change. Voting control belonged to June Pike. Her mother's name stood there in ink, not as a patient, not as a grieving widow, not as a problem to be managed, but as the person Arthur had trusted to hold the station. A small note slipped from the back of the sleeve and drifted to the floor. Kendra picked it up. Raleigh knows the lock. Trust him if I cannot speak. She pressed the note to her chest and closed her eyes. The betrayal around her had grown larger, but so had the love beneath it. Raleigh reached back into the cabinet. There is more. Behind the manuals, under a folded canvas cover, sat an old broadcast reel in a brown case. Unlike the others, this one had no date, no program number, and no music list. Only a single sentence written across the label in Arthur's hand, for June when they tried to turn down her voice. Kendra read the line until the words blurred. Then Raleigh took the reel case from her before her hands could drop it. The transmitter room seemed to hold its breath. Dust floated in the thin light from the hall, and the old metal cabinet stood open behind them like a mouth that had finally chosen to speak. Kendra pressed the plastic sleeve of papers against her coat. We have to take this to Mom. Raleigh looked toward the hallway. Not through Wesley. Then how? He wrapped the reel in a faded station towel and tucked it into a canvas tool bag. Same way Arthur did most things, quietly, before fools notice. Before they left, he checked the back door Holly had claimed I left open in the rain. He knelt, touched the torn wood near the lock, and his jaw tightened. This was scratched from outside. Kendra's face went pale. Could Mom have done that? Not unless she picked a door she had keys for, then locked herself out, just so they could call her confused. That answer followed them all the way to Meadow Glass. Kendra arrived first, carrying the ownership papers under her coat. Raleigh came a few minutes later with the reel player hidden under a blanket and the canvas bag hanging from one shoulder. The woman at the desk smiled with trained patience. June is resting. Then tell Laurel I am here with legal papers connected to my mother's property. The smile faded. When Laurel came out, she was holding a folder. June has had an emotional morning, Laurel said. My mother is allowed to have emotions. Of course, but this situation is sensitive. It became sensitive when she was brought here under a story that may not be true. Laurel's eyes moved to Raleigh. And you are? Raleigh Boone. I have kept that station alive longer than most people keep promises. Outside visitors require approval. My mother is not a delivery box, Kendra said. She can hear the truth from people she trusts. Laurel started to answer, but Kendra pulled the plastic sleeve halfway from her coat. She did not let Laurel read it. She only let her see Arthur's signature and my name. If this facility keeps my mother from business records that belong to her, then your office may become part of something bigger than a family disagreement. Laurel stood very still. They brought me to a private sitting room with pale chairs and a window that did not open. When I saw Kendra, I knew before she spoke. Something had changed in her. Fear was still there, but doubt had moved away from me and toward the people who had put me here. Raleigh entered behind her with the tool bag. June. His voice nearly broke me. He said my name like I was still a person, not a file. Tell me you did not call Wesley about the back door, I said. I would not call that boy if the tower fell on his truck. I laughed, and the laugh belonged to me. Laurel remained near the door. Kendra turned. We need privacy. I cannot leave June alone with equipment. Raleigh set the bag down. It is a real player, not a weapon. Laurel did not move. I looked at her. Then stay and listen, but if you write about my reaction before you understand what caused it, you will be helping the people who brought me here. Her face changed. She stepped back, but she did not leave. Raleigh placed the dented portable reel player on the low table. Kendra put the documents in my hands. At first, I looked only at Arthur's signature. My husband's name sat there in blue ink, steady and familiar. What is this? I whispered. Voting control, Kendra said. It belongs to you. I read slowly. My name was there. Arthur's name was there. The date was from the season when his hands trembled, but his mind still saw what I could not yet see. Laurel came closer. June, do you need water? No, I said. I need you to remember that I understood this page. She stopped. Raleigh threaded the tape. The reel turned with a soft whisper. For a moment, there was only hiss. Then Arthur breathed into the machine. June, he said. Kendra made a small, broken sound. Arthur's voice was thinner than it had been on Sunday mornings, but it was his private voice, the one he used when the callers were gone and only home remained. If you are hearing this, honey, then I either ran out of time or somebody waited until I could not stand beside you and decided that made you easier to move. My hand went to my mouth. I wanted to tell you straight, Arthur continued. I tried. Every time I found the breath, I thought about what it would do to you while I was still in that bed. So I made the only kind of witness I knew how to make. I made a record. The tape crackled. Wesley came to me with papers last winter. He said the station needed restructuring. He said I was too tired to understand the new world. I let him talk because sometimes a man shows you more when he thinks you are weak. Kendra held my hand tighter. Those papers had your name on them, June. Not signed by you, written like you, close enough to fool a stranger, not close enough to fool me. He had borrowed against equipment he did not own free and clear. He had promised access to land he had no right to promise. When I asked where he learned to sign your name, he cried. Grief rose in me with sharp edges. Arthur drew a slow breath on the tape. I do not know how much Holly helped. I do know she started asking strange questions about your forgetfulness before you had forgotten anything. That was when I changed the voting control. If anyone says you cannot speak for Pike Family Radio, they are lying unless a court hears you. Not them. Laurel had gone still. There is a loan file somewhere, Arthur said. Wesley is scared. Scared men do foolish things, and greedy people hide behind scared men. Watch who speaks for concern but keeps looking at the deed box. A sob came out of me before I could stop it. My husband had been dying, and still he had been watching the room for me. I love our children, Arthur said. That is the sorrow of this. Loving them does not make them honest. Forgiving them in your heart does not mean handing them the keys. If they try to put you somewhere, if they say rest, if they say safety, if they say you are hearing things, remember this. You heard me because I left myself where only you would know to listen. Kendra bent over my hand. There is one more thing, Arthur said. Raleigh looked up. The old phone recorder may still be wired to line 2. I never trusted that switch after the repair job. If people used my office thinking the phone was dead, there may be more truth sleeping in that machine than anyone intended. The reel moved through a patch of silence. Then Arthur said my name once more so gently that the room seemed to fold around it. June, if they try to turn down your voice, turn up the truth. The tape ran into empty hiss. No one moved. Even Laurel looked shaken. Kendra wiped her face. Mom, I am so sorry. You did not do this. I did not stop it. You are here now. Riley shut off the player. We need to get you out, Laurel finally spoke. That may take time. Kendra turned on her. Time is what they use to trap her. There are procedures built on lies, I said. Laurel looked toward the door. No calls to Wesley first, I told her. She hesitated. If you warn the person named in that recording before you help the woman brought here under his story, then you have chosen your side. For the first time, Laurel looked less like a gate and more like a woman afraid of what she had been guarding. I will speak with administration, she said. I cannot promise immediate release, then promise silence until we speak to a lawyer. She did not promise, but she also did not refuse. Raleigh packed the real player, then leaned close to me. I am going back to check line 2. Do not go alone if Wesley is there. Wesley never notices old things until they beat him. He left with the tool bag and the dented player, looking like a tired old man carrying broken equipment. He returned to Pike Family Radio through the service entrance. Wesley's truck was gone. Holly's car was gone. Arthur's office had been searched. Drawers sat crooked. File labels were out of order. His coffee mug had been moved from the left side of the desk to the right. Raleigh whispered, "Sorry, old friend." He knelt beside the side table and pulled away a wood panel most people thought was part of the wall. Behind it waited dust, old wiring, and a small recorder Arthur had refused to throw out. It was supposed to record only station calls, but Arthur had been right. The switch had never behaved. Raleigh found a storage card dated the morning I was taken. He copied it to the old station laptop. At first, there was only static. Then a chair scraped. Then Holly's voice came through. She will not sign if she knows about the closing. A man's voice answered, even. Then keep her away from the papers. Raleigh sat back hard. Holly said, Wesley thinks he is steering this, but he is desperate. Desperate people are easy. Evan laughed softly. So are loyal wives. You do not get to talk about wives. You are the one standing in Arthur's office before sunrise with your husband's mother packed in a suitcase. I did what had to be done. You did what gets us paid. There was a silence long enough to feel, then Holly said, Do not file until Kendra signs the family release. I know. If you divorce her too soon, she will freeze. She has to think you are protecting her from June's decline, and Wesley has to think you are protecting him from prison. Do not say that. Why? He forged enough to bury himself. And you knew after you told me. You knew before. Do not play innocent with me. Another silence followed, closer and uglier. Evan's voice dropped. When this closes, you leave Wesley, I leave Kendra, and we stop pretending Sunday dinners are sacred. Holly answered, Not until the money clears. Raleigh stopped the recording. For a moment, he could only stare at the laptop. It was cruelty with a schedule. He copied the file twice. One copy went into his pocket. Another he hid inside a cracked battery case behind the old broadcast board. Then he called Kendra from the station phone. She answered quickly, Raleigh? I found line 2. Her voice tightened. How bad? Bad enough that your mother should not hear it alone. Does it prove, Evan? Raleigh closed his eyes. Yes, the silence on her end was not empty. It was a house falling inward. Bring it, she said. By evening, the air at Meadowglass had shifted. Wesley called twice. Laurel did not put him through. Kendra sat beside my bed with Arthur's reel under her coat and the ownership papers folded in her purse. Her face looked calm in the way a frozen pond looks calm. When Raleigh returned after dinner, I understood before he opened his mouth that the next truth would not belong only to me. Laurel allowed us the sitting room again. This time she stood outside with the door partly open, close enough to claim policy and far enough to claim she had not heard everything. Raleigh set a small player on the table. Arthur was right about line 2, he said. Kendra looked at the floor. I reached for her hand. Play it, I said. Mom, play it. Raleigh pressed the button. Holly's voice filled the room. Then Evans, I watched my daughter while her marriage came apart in sentences. The recording did not sound like passion. It sounded like business with breathing behind it. I was an obstacle. Wesley was a useful fool. Kendra was a signature. Marriage was timing. Grief was cover. When Evans spoke of divorce, Kendra did not cry. She only folded both hands in her lap and stared at the carpet as if one loose thread might keep her from falling through the earth. When the recording ended, no one spoke. At last I said, Kendra. She looked at me. He did this. Not you. Her mouth trembled. I brought him into our family. No, I said. He hid himself inside yours. Rayleigh took the player back, then handed Kendra a folded printout from the station fax machine. There is one more thing. Wesley left this on the tray. Kendra read it first. Her face changed. Then she passed it to me. The words were plain enough. Final closing conference. Tomorrow morning, Pike Family Radio Assets and Transmitter Parcel. Family representative to confirm authority. My son's name sat at the bottom like a claim. For a moment, I saw Wesley in the station doorway with my keys in his hand. I saw Arthur's chair, Holly's suitcase, Evan by the window, Laurel's folder, and Kendra's pale face. Every one of them was connected now by a line Wesley thought he controlled. Raleigh said quietly, "He thinks you are still trapped." I folded the paper once, carefully, because my hands no longer shook. Then tomorrow, I said, we let him think that a little longer. Morning came without mercy. I had slept less than an hour, but when Maribel helped me button my coat, my fingers were steady. Kendra stood near the window with Arthur's papers tucked inside a plain envelope. Raleigh held the canvas tool bag as if it contained nothing more important than wrenches and wire. Laurel met us at the front desk. She looked tired. I spoke with administration, she said. June may leave for the meeting with family supervision, but she must return until the review is formally cleared. I am not returning as a prisoner. Her eyes lowered. I understand. No, I said, you are beginning to. Kendra signed the form. Raleigh opened the rear door of his old truck for me like Arthur would have done. The cold air smelled of wet leaves and gravel. For the first time since Wesley had taken my keys, the sky felt real. Kendra sat beside me in the back seat, one hand on the envelope and the other on mine. Neither of us mentioned Evan. Some betrayals do not need names spoken every minute. Raleigh drove toward the low brick building where Wesley had scheduled the closing. It was a polite little room rented by people who believed paper could make theft look clean. Wesley was already there through the glass. I saw him standing at the conference table in his dark coat, speaking to two men in suits and a woman with a laptop. Holly stood near the coffee station, pale but composed. Evan sat beside the empty chair meant for Kendra, his face arranged into concern. My son looked almost relieved when Kendra walked in first. Then he saw me behind her. The relief vanished. "Mom," he said. I had imagined sharp answers on the way there. In the end, I only said his name. Wesley, the woman with the laptop, stood. I was told Mrs. Pike would not be attending. Plans changed, Kendra said, even rose halfway. Kendra, can we talk outside? No, his mouth tightened. This is not the place. She looked at him with a stillness that frightened even me. It is exactly the place. Holly set down her coffee cup. June, you should not have been brought here. This could be very stressful for you. Then stop doing stressful things. One of the suited men cleared his throat. Perhaps we should pause until everyone is ready. I am ready, Wesley said too quickly. My mother is here, but she has not been legally cleared to handle complex business today. Raleigh closed the door behind us. I walked to the table and placed both hands on the back of a chair. I ran county emergency lines for more than 3 decades. I can follow a sales meeting, Wesley flushed. This is not about your old job. No, it is about yours, the one where you pretend you own what your father left in my care. The room went silent. The woman with the laptop looked from Wesley to me. There appears to be a dispute over authority. No dispute, Wesley said. My mother is confused. We have documentation from the facility and family notes showing a pattern of decline. Kendra reached into the envelope and took out Holly's care notes. Some of these notes are false. Holly moved at once. Kendra is emotional. Kendra laid one page flat. This one says my mother got lost driving to my house on a morning when she was already inside my house before breakfast. I was with her all day. Wrong date, Holly said. And this one says she missed lunch with Wesley after she forgot the appointment. Wesley canceled that lunch. Wesley opened his mouth, then closed it. Kendra placed another page down. And this one says she called Holly from the station after midnight, saying she heard Arthur in the walls. Holly's eyes flicked to Evan. Kendra saw it. So did I. That call did not happen, I said. Wesley gripped the edge of the table. You do not remember. I remember being lied about. The buyer's representative leaned back slowly. We may need counsel present before proceeding. Counsel is present, said a voice from the doorway. Laurel stepped in with the lawyer from Meadow Glass, the same woman who had written beside my fear on the morning they took me. Laurel said, the facility has concerns about the circumstances under which Mrs. Pike was admitted. Wesley stared at her. You had no right to come here. Your mother asked that no one warn you first, Laurel said. After reviewing information provided by her daughter, we agreed that further delay could cause harm. Holly whispered, this is ridiculous. Raleigh set the canvas bag on the table. Wesley pointed at him. He should not be here. Raleigh unzipped the bag. Funny. Arthur seemed to think I should. He took out the real player. The sight of it changed Wesley more than any accusation had. His face did not go blank. It went young. For a heartbeat, he was a boy who had broken something and heard his father's truck in the driveway. What is that? He asked. I answered, your father. No, it came from Wesley like a reflex. I nodded to Raleigh. The tape began with hiss. Then Arthur's voice entered the room, thin, patient, and unmistakable. He named the papers Wesley had brought, the signature that was not mine, the loan against equipment, and the transfer of voting control to me. Wesley seemed to sink deeper into his own coat. Turn it off, he said. No, I said. That is private. You made my mind public. You made my grief public. You packed my robe in a suitcase and called it care. You do not get privacy now. Arthur's recorded voice continued. If anyone says June cannot speak for Pike Family Radio, they are lying unless a court hears her, not them. The woman with the laptop went still. Raleigh placed the original ownership documents beside the sale packet. You might want to compare signatures before anybody signs anything. One of the suited men picked up the documents, then looked at Wesley with new caution. Wesley sat down hard. Dad was sick, he misunderstood. I looked at him. Do not hide behind the illness of the man you betrayed. His eyes filled. I was trying to save everything. You were trying to sell everything. I was in trouble. That part, I believe. The words struck him quieter than anger would have. Holly stepped away from the table. I did not forge anything. No one had accused her yet, even stood. This is a family matter, Kendra. Let us leave. Kendra did not move. Raleigh took out the second player. Evan's face changed. What is that? Raleigh's voice was flat. Line 2, Holly whispered. Raleigh, he looked at her. You should have checked whether old things still worked. The recording began. At first, there was office noise. Then Holly's voice came through, clear enough to cut skin. She will not sign if she knows about the closing. Evan's answer followed. Then keep her away from the papers. Kendra closed her eyes. No one interrupted now. The room had become afraid of its own air. The recording played on. Holly called Wesley desperate. Evan spoke of keeping Kendra calm until she signed. Then came the sentence that emptied all color from my daughter's face. When this closes, you leave Wesley, I leave Kendra, and we stop pretending Sunday dinners are sacred. Holly covered her mouth. Even reached for Kendra. That is not what it sounds like. Kendra stepped back before he touched her. It sounds like you used my mother to rob my family and used me to protect yourself. No, I was angry. People say things. People say what they are brave enough to say when they think no one important is listening. Holly turned on Wesley. You told me the papers were already handled. Wesley stared at her. You knew. You begged me to help manage June. Manage, I said softly. Holly looked at me then, and all her polish cracked. You do not know what it is like, being married to a man drowning and pretending the water is fine. No, I said, but I know what it is like to be used as the rope. The buyer's representative closed his folder. We are not proceeding. Wesley looked up. Wait, no, the man said. Not with disputed authority, questions of capacity, and possible fraud. The word fraud landed harder than any curse. Evan moved toward the door, but Kendra spoke before he reached it. If you leave now, do not come home. He turned back. Kendra, you heard me. His concern was gone. Without it, he looked small. You will regret making decisions while emotional. She gave a quiet, terrible laugh. That is the line you all practice for my mother. He had no answer. Wesley put both hands over his face. For a moment, the room saw only his shaking shoulders. I had waited to feel triumph. It did not come. A mother can watch justice arrive and still grieve the child standing in its path. He lowered his hands. Mom, I was going to fix it after the sale. No, you were going to bury it. I owed money. To whom? He shook his head. To people who do not send polite letters, his silence answered. The lawyer from Meadow Glass stepped closer to the table. Mrs. Pike, do you wish to make a formal statement that you were brought to care under false claims? I looked at Wesley. His eyes pleaded with me, not for rescue, but for the smaller mercy of silence. Arthur had once told me mercy without truth is just another hiding place. Yes, I said, I do. I was not confused. I was removed from my station and my home while my son held my keys. My daughter-in-law had packed my clothes, and my son-in-law kept my daughter from me. Notes were made about things that did not happen. Those notes were used to question my mind. The purpose was not my safety. The purpose was control. No one wrote quickly enough. When the meeting ended, the sale packet remained unsigned on the table. Holly left first, her head high, until the hallway swallowed her, even stood by the door waiting for Kendra to soften. She did not. I will come by the house for my things with someone present, she said. Kendra, do not do this. You did it when you decided I was a signature before I was your wife. He left after that. Raleigh gathered the real player. Laurel approached me quietly. June, Meadow Glass will not require you to return today. I studied her face. She swallowed. I am sorry. I believe you are. I should have listened sooner. Yes, I said, you should have. It was not cruel. It was clean. Outside, the clouds had begun to break. Raleigh drove us back toward Pike Family Radio. Kendra sat beside me, staring out at the fields. Mom, she said at last, what happens to Wesley? I do not know. Are you going to press charges? I am going to tell the truth to people whose job is to decide what follows. She nodded. And Evan, that is yours to answer. Her voice was almost gone. I thought I knew my life. So did I. The station was waiting when we arrived. Wesley had not locked the front door properly. That small carelessness would have frightened me the day before. Now it only made me tired. Inside, Arthur's chair still stood beside the desk. My purse sat on the counter, returned by someone who wanted no more questions. My keys lay beside it. I picked them up. Arthur's brass tag rested warm in my palm. Though the room was cold, Raleigh went to the booth and checked the board. Kendra moved through the office slowly, touching nothing. I stood beneath the on-air light and felt the building recognize me. June, Raleigh called. Board is live if you want it. I walked into the booth. For years, Arthur had sat there with his hand on the switch, turning ordinary mornings into something people trusted. Weather warnings, lost dogs, birthdays, obituaries, a county hearing its own heartbeat. I put on the headphones. The silence before a broadcast is not empty. Raleigh looked through the glass and lifted one hand. Kendra stood behind him, crying quietly with the terrible relief of finally knowing where the floor was. I pressed the button. The red light came on. For a moment, I could not speak, not because I had no voice, but because I finally had it back. Then I leaned toward the microphone Arthur had left me. This is June Marceline Pike at Pike Family Radio, I said. Some of you may have heard my husband's voice this week. Today, you are hearing mine. My own voice came through the headphones, rough but steady. There are times when people call control concern. There are times when they call silence peace. And there are times when family can break your heart while smiling like they are saving you. Raleigh bowed his head. I kept going. If someone is rushing you to sign, move, sell, or surrender your keys, slow down. Ask one more question. Call one more person. Love your family, but do not hand your voice to anyone who profits when you disappear. I looked at Kendra. This station will remain here. It will not be sold today. It will not be run by fear. And starting Sunday, we will open these lines for anyone who needs help finding the words they were told not to say. I paused. Arthur's chair waited on the other side of the glass. And Arthur, I said, because I no longer cared who wrote down what a widow said to her dead husband, you were right. A quiet signal is not dead. It is only waiting. I turned off the microphone. The room held still for one long breath. Then the station phone rang. Raleigh looked at me. I looked at Kendra. The phone rang again, loud and clear, carrying the county back to us one voice at a time. I picked it up.